My name is Mr. Nduku Thomas, Vice Chairperson, Assessment Council. I do understand in 844 system, we used to call it Examination Council, but due to the things of CBC, the name changed to Assessment Council, and I'm the Vice Chairperson in both primary and junior school. So I'll talk briefly about the assessments in primary and junior. Let me start by looking at the primary school assessment. In primary school, lower has 7 learning areas which are tested, and in upper primary we have 8 learning areas. We normally have in primary, both lower and upper, we have a minimum of 3 assessments per term. That is an opener exam, a mid-term exam, and end-term exam. This testing, they take a minimum of 3 days, a duration of, let's say, 1 week, then we release those particular results. But this is the contrary to grade 6. As you well know, grade 6 is an examination class. They normally sit for KPSEA. So in grade 6, we expose them to a number of tests so that they can be conversant to a number of questions. I'll talk briefly on the KPSEA, last year's KPSEA results. Our last year's candidates in grade 6, they did pretty well in KPSEA. We had more than 100 candidates or learners having exceeding expectation. You know, in 844, we are used to make, let's say, 400 and what, but now in CBC, exceeding expectations, those are learners who scored a 4 and above. We had very few learners who were below expectation. When I talk about below expectation, it means that these learners, they scored 1, but they were very few. I'll go to junior school. Junior school comprises of 3 classes, that is grade 7, 8, and 9. We normally test a population of more than 1,800 students in junior school. That is our enrollment in terms of testing. Junior school has got a total number of 9 learning areas. I know you know them. I'll talk about the nature of assessment. Junior school, their questions are structured. The questions are structured, and they normally have 3 assessments per term, just the way the primary ones have. As a school, we normally set our own exam, but we interchange. We can have external setting and as well internal setting. The assessments in junior school, they take a minimum of 3 days. That is if they don't sit for the full set. You know, they have introduced paper 1 and paper 2 in some of these learning areas. So basically, they take a minimum of 3 days. Time allocation per paper varies. We have got some papers which take a minimum of 1.5 hours, and we've got some which normally take 2 hours to 2.5, especially the practicals in integrated science and mathematics. Invigilation is normally done from the assessment room. We have an interclass exchange program, invigilation approach. That is, if you are a classroom teacher in grade 7, you will invigilate grade 8. And if you are a class teacher in grade 9, you will invigilate grade 7 and vice versa. Marking, it takes 3 days after the end of the last paper. For example, mtihani kisha Friday, working days, that is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, marking should be over. And a teacher is only required to mark a section in one learning area. For example, if I'm a teacher of pre-technical, maybe I'll be given 1 or 2 questions in pre-technical. Then if I mark pre-technical, I'll not be allowed to mark any other learning area. This one, it gives a window for integrity so that a teacher is not biased in terms of marking. Then we normally apply conveyor belt method of marking. Karatasi inatoka kwa after marking, huyu after huyu, then tunamaliza. And the questions, our questions are normally within our design. We can't set something which is outside the design. And I want to appreciate our parents. They have really supported us when it comes to these assessments. And maybe my question or your question might be easy. How are they supporting us? We normally request them to give us at least 1 ream of paper per year. This ream of paper, it enables us to print a number of quizzes, cards, and even rats. So it gives us an easy time in setting of these particular assessments. As a school, per now we don't have a Zaraki analytic app. So we use MS Excel in analyzing these results. We use both rubrics and percentages for the consumptions of learners and teachers and as well as parents. Though as well know, CBC requires to use rubrics. Rubrics are the codes. That is 1 stands for below expectations, 2 approaching expectation, 3 meeting expectations, and 4 that is exceeding expectations. So the CBC method requires to use the rubrics. But for the consumptions of parents and teachers and as well as learners, we also indicate the percentage mark. Ndio ujue mtoto kama ni 1, ujue mzazi 1 inafika wapi. So that's why we use the 2. Our assessment release and feedback is always timely. It is within one week. Watoto wanakuwa wameshajua matokeo yao. And during the release, we normally motivate our learners. For those who have done well, we give them something, that is maybe a pen, a book. And those ones who might not have performed well, we also give them motivational talks for them to improve during the next assessments. The importance of assessment. Why is assessment important to students, parents, and even as teachers? 1, you realize that CBC assessment has really tried to cut down on the pressure the child used to have during the 844 system. At least imepunguza pressure kidogo, si kama kitambo. Why has it cut down the pressure? CBC assessment, it looks at the overall competence of a learner. Mtoto anaweza kuwa hawezi maybe in mathematics, but that particular boy or girl is good in drawing. Unaona? Then in CBC tunampa heko na moyo wa kuendelea kufanya in other areas which he or she is good in. Also, when you look at this assessment, it helps a facilitator. A facilitator, is a teacher. In 844, walikuwa naitwa teachers, but now in CBC they are called facilitators. So CBC helps a facilitator to understand the learner's ability. You are able to understand the ability of that particular learner after assessing him maybe in mathematics, pre-technical, agriculture, or any other given learning area. I know in 844 we used to call them subjects, but now in CBC they are learning areas. Also, assessment, it gives the feedback of teaching and learning process in class, which is our core business as a school. So as the head of the institution, you'll be in a position to know whether learning and teaching took place or not through the assessment. Also, AssessCo has made this, or the assessment has made this school to be what it is now through the assessment process. The good name we are having as a school, look at our population. It is because of the good assessment, the structure in the assessment council we have. It also informs the parent on the ability of the child, that's enabling him or her to be responsible in terms of motivating his or her learner. So it keeps our parents on toes to take serious in matters to do with the academic performance of their learners.